The petty revenge of the cocktail waitress. In the early 90s, not long after my husband and I got married, I picked up a second job as a cocktail waitress at a hotel bar to help make ends meet. The hotel was a hub for traveling businessmen and convention attendees, so the bar always had a rotating cast of out-of-town regulars. Most nights were uneventful. Decent tips, casual banter, the occasional harmless flirtation. Some guys would ask for my number or invite me out, but as soon as I told them I was married, they'd usually back off and move on. That line, "I'm going home to my husband," had been my go-to for a while, and up until this one night, it always worked. That night, I had a two-top seated at one of my four-person tables. Two guys in their early 30s, convention badges around their necks, already a couple of drinks in by the time I got to them. I took their order, dropped off their drinks, and then the guy sitting closest to me, let's call him Jim, asked what I was doing after work. I gave him the usual answer, going home to my husband. Instead of the usual, okay, no worries, Jim's face twisted into something ugly. He immediately accused me of lying, said my wedding ring was fake, a decoy to fend off guys like him. I told him no, it was real, and even if it wasn't, company policy forbids staff from fraternizing with guests. That only pissed him off more. Soon, two more of their friends joined them. One of them smirked and said, "I hear you think you're too good for my buddy here." I smiled, polite but firm, and said, "No, I'm just too married." That should have been the end of it. But instead, it kicked off 90 straight minutes of passive-aggressive hell. Every drink order was wrong, even when it was exactly what they asked for. Every plate of food I brought, fries, nachos, potato skins, was cold or undercooked, or not what I ordered. They made a mess on purpose, knocking over drinks, dropping ice cubes, flinging food to the floor, always sour cream side down. Every time I walked by, it was snide comments or whispers loud enough to hear. They ran me ragged, racked up a tab over $120, and then stiffed me. Not a single dollar in tips. My manager saw the disaster they'd left behind and, to his credit, closed my section early so I could clean it up. I was down on my hands and knees under the table scraping dried cheese and smashed fries off the carpet when I spotted a small, black, 35mm film canister tucked under one of the chairs. I shook it, no rattle. Curious, I popped the lid. It was packed, absolutely stuffed, with some of the most pungent, sticky weed I had ever encountered. I was still pretty young then, and while I didn't smoke a ton, I knew quality when I saw and smelled it. I closed it up, slipped it into my apron, and made my way to the break room to stash it in my locker before finishing my cleanup. 20 minutes later, as I was closing out my bank, Jim came back. He told the hostess he'd lost something, and she let him back into the bar to look. I watched from behind the counter as he poked around the table, lifted napkins, moved chairs, all things I'd already cleaned. He kept glancing over at me, maybe hoping I'd give him a clue or hand over what he was looking for. I didn't. I just kept doing my closing tasks like he didn't exist. Eventually, he gave up and left. When I got home that night, I tossed the canister to my husband and said, "Check out the tip I got." He opened it, took one sniff, and whooped with joy. He grabbed our kitchen scale, dumped it out. It came out in one perfect compressed nugget and weighed it. 7 grams, a full quarter ounce. We got high, laughed until our sides hurt, and spent the entire weekend curled up on the couch, ordering takeout and watching movies. It was one of the most relaxing weekends we'd had in a long time. That little stash lasted us nearly a month.